Ever stop and think about how your body just works? All the millions of things happening at once, from healing a cut to feeling an emotion. Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the secret communication network that makes it all possible. We're talking about cell signaling. All right, to really get this, check this out. Think about a cephalopod, an octopus or a cuttlefish. They can literally change their color and texture in the blink of an eye to perfectly match whatever's around them. Now, we're not talking about one little thing happening. This is thousands, maybe millions of cells all coordinating a super complex response. And it's instantaneous. So the big question is, how on earth does an animal pull off something that complex, that fast? Now, you might be thinking, oh great, this is going to be hundreds of complicated pathways I have to memorize. But here's the amazing part. It's not like that at all. The truth is, it all comes down to a kind of secret language that all our cells speak, and the key to cracking that code. It's just one super simple chemical rule. And that one single rule, it's solubility. Seriously, that's it. The most important thing you can know about any chemical signal is just this. Does it dissolve in water, like the plasma in your blood, or does it prefer to dissolve in fats, lipids, like the membrane that surrounds every single one of your cells? And just based on that one simple property, we can split pretty much all of our signals into two big families. On one side, you've got the hydrophilic, or water-loving signals. And on the other, the hydrophobic, or fat-loving ones. And I'm telling you, understanding the difference between these two, well, it's the key to the whole shebang. So let's break that down. A hydrophilic signal? The name literally means water-loving. These are the chemicals that are totally happy to just dissolve in any watery environment. Think about the blood plasma carrying them all over your body, or the cytoplasm floating around inside a cell. They feel right at home. And then you've got the flip side, hydrophobic signals. These guys are water-hating, but fat-loving. No way they're dissolving in water, but they are perfectly at home dissolving in lipids, which, of course, is exactly what your cell membranes are made of. And this one difference, it dictates literally their entire life story. Okay, so this is the crucial point I really want to drive home. This one property, solubility, it doesn't just affect one little part of a signal's journey. No. It dictates everything, from the moment it's created to how it travels through your body to the exact way it delivers its final message. Pretty much every signaling pathway follows these 6 basic steps. You've got synthesis, secretion, transport, and so on, all the way to the final response. So let's see how our big rule, solubility, completely changes the game at some of the most critical points. All right, let's start at the very beginning, how these signals are made and stored. A water-loving, hydrophilic signal can be pre-made and tucked away in these little bubbles inside a cell called vesicles. This means they are ready to go at a moment's notice, like having a message already written and sealed in an envelope. But the fat-loving, hydrophobic signals, they can't be stored like that. They just slip right through the fatty wall of the vesicle. So the cell has to make them on demand, from scratch every single time. And naturally, that's a much slower process. Okay, now for how they travel. This is where it gets really interesting. The hydrophilic signal, being water-soluble, has it easy. It just dissolves right into your bloodstream and cruises along freely. Simple. But the hydrophobic signal, it can't dissolve in all that water in your blood. So to get around, it has to hitch a ride on a special carrier protein. You can think of it like a VIP who needs a chauffeur just to get through the crowd. And finally, what about the delivery? How do they get the message to the target cell? Well, a hydrophilic signal can't cross the cell's fatty outer membrane. It's blocked. So it delivers its message by binding to a receptor on the outside of the cell. It's basically ringing the doorbell. But the hydrophilic signal, because it's fat-soluble, has an all-access pass. It just waltzes right through the membrane and finds its receptor waiting for it on the inside. All right, so that's the basic framework. But, theory is one thing. Let's get into some fascinating real-world examples to see how these principles actually play out, both in our own bodies and in the world around us. And this is where things can get really serious. This quote right here points to a major environmental problem. It's describing an intersex minnow. This is a fish that is genetically male, but because it's been exposed to certain chemicals in the water, it started developing as if it were a female, to the point of even growing eggs inside its testes. It's wild. So how in the world does something like that happen? Well, sometimes chemicals out in the environment can act as what we call an agonist. Think of an agonist as a chemical imposter. It's just similar enough to one of our body's natural hormones, like estrogen, that it can fool the receptor. It binds to it and triggers the exact same response, basically hijacking the entire system.
And the opposite of that is called an antagonist. An antagonist is more like a system jammer. It fits into the receptor, like a key in a lock, but it doesn't turn it. It doesn't trigger any response. Instead, it just sits there, physically blocking the body's actual, natural hormone from getting in and doing its job. And as you can imagine, both of these can have huge effects on an animal's health.
Okay, now for a truly brilliant example of our own bodies using both of these systems perfectly, let's look at how we handle stress. It turns out we have this incredible two-speed response system that relies on both hydrophilic and hydrophobic signals. So imagine you sense danger. Instantly, your nervous system sends a lightning-fast signal to release epinephrine. You probably know it as adrenaline. That's our fast, water-loving signal. Remember, it's pre-made and stored, so it hits your system in seconds for that immediate fight-or-flight kick. But at the exact same time, a slower signal gets started. This one triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol, and these are our slow, fat-loving signals. They're made on demand to help your body adapt to stress over minutes, even hours. It's an absolutely brilliant design, using both speed for the immediate threat and endurance for the long haul. You know, a lot of our body systems aren't just a simple on switch. They're more sophisticated. They have both a gas pedal and a brake. This really important principle is called antagonistic control, and it's all about maintaining balance. And the perfect example of this is how your body manages your blood sugar. So your pancreas releases two opposing hydrophilic hormones. Insulin is the brake pedal. It tells your cells to pull glucose out of the blood, which lowers your blood sugar. And then glucagon is the gas pedal. It tells your liver to release its stored glucose, which raises your blood sugar. And by constantly playing these two off each other, your body keeps your energy supply in this incredibly precise, stable, healthy range. So, okay, we've gone through the theory, we've seen some amazing examples. But let's take a step back for a second. Why does this all matter? Why is getting a grip on this one central principle of solubility just so important for really understanding biology? Okay, so here are the key takeaways. This is what I really want you to walk away with. First, please don't just try to memorize a million different hormones and pathways. It's about understanding the principles underneath. Second, remember that solubility is the secret key. If you know if a signal is water or fat soluble, I promise you can predict almost its entire life story. Third, appreciate how these different pathways give the body options for both fast and slow responses. That's absolutely critical for survival. And finally, start looking for these recurring concepts like that gas pedal and brake of antagonistic control. You'll start to see them pop up everywhere in biology once you know what to look for.
When you really boil it down, our body's most complex, incredible systems are governed by these surprisingly simple chemical rules. And that leaves us with a pretty cool question to think about. If our own health is governed by this secret language of solubility, how will the medicines of the future learn to speak that language even better, even more fluently, to help us heal?